Joining us now in North Carolina, State Representative Jake Johnson. Jake, Representative, thanks so much for being here. Get into these rules that could really hold back the recovery of this completely devastated part of Western North Carolina.
Sean, Dagan, thank you all so much for having me on. DEQ is our Department of Environmental Quality. And, if you're doing construction or building a house or trying to develop a business, DEQ is oftentimes the first one on the ground, maybe blocking you from getting where you're needing to go. Let's say some mud, runs off side of the road or something. They're usually there on the ground. The problem I'm seeing right now is they're nowhere to be found. You're looking at the images on screen right now that we're dealing with out here. And the agency who is supposed to be in charge of protecting the environment is nowhere to be found. I represent the Lake Lure Chimney Rock area. I'm sure many of you have seen the images. The town of Lake Lure, or the town of Chimney Rock, has pretty much washed into the town of Lake Lure, along with all the businesses and homes that were there. You're talking about commercial kitchens, propane tanks, fuel. You're talking about a sewage line that was washed away, huge environmental concerns for the lake and the ecosystem below it. And the agency who is tasked with that, who is usually the first one on the ground enforcing these regulations, are nowhere to be found. So what we've done is go in and look at some common sense ways we can actually roll back regulations to speed up the cleanup process, whether that be with burning debris, getting rid of those permits, making sure we're expediting wastewater treatment facilities being fixed, and making sure we're mitigating the red tape when we're rebuilding roads. Transportation is a huge issue out here right now.
So is your point that the Environmental Agency of North Carolina has to give the approval for much of this cleanup, and they're nowhere to be seen, so they're not giving the approval? So to stay compliant with the law, we can't go forward with cleanup? Is that what's happening here?
A little bit of that. More so, they're not there at all advising on just something as simple as water quality in the lake, where all this debris is washed in. They've given the towns, the last I spoke with them, which was very recently, the Department of Environmental Quality had given them no guidance on how bad it was in the lakes and rivers. And that's a huge issue. You're seeing on screen right now, that's the town of Chimney Rock that I represent in Western North Carolina, totally decimated. And they're getting no guidance from the state agencies, much less FEMA, who took forever to get on the ground out here.
I was going to ask you about that because the Democrats and the people, the bureaucrats in government, they will try their level best to dismiss this issue after Hurricane Milton down in Florida is just a one-off. But we all know, and you didn't have to be on the ground after Hurricane Helene hit in Western North Carolina, Jake, FEMA was not there. I talked to dozens of people, all those helo pilots who were flying in for days and days and days, and FEMA was not there doing rescue operations. And I just wanted to get your reaction to that. Did they finally show up?
Dagan, Sean, it was two things you never want to hear to describe a government response are slow and inefficient, but that's exactly what they were. They might have had someone on the ground with a clipboard coming by to check a box, but as far as having people on the ground helping move things, actually helping people know what their options were, that took weeks in some areas, and that's absolutely unacceptable. We had people that had lost their homes, lost their businesses, lost relatives. I mean, they'd lost everything, and they had nowhere to turn. It was our local folks on the ground,
yep.
Nonprofits, volunteers, neighbors. That was who was really helping in the opening hours. On top of that, I mean, it took us 3 days, and I can speak to this from personal experience. I live in a small county of 19,000 people. It took us 3 days to get a medical evacuation helicopter into some of our areas. That is unacceptable. And that's unacceptable to even get food and water in, much less a medical evacuation.
Shameful. Jake Johnson, keep up the good work. Thanks for being with us and telling the story. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and happy Veterans Day.